Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Double 18 podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Nagishi. It's Friday night, and thank you very much for joining us this evening. It's Friday night, and as promised, my guest is a longtime friend of mine, the Bears YouTuber with his own channel, the Windy City Productions. It is none other than Rishab Skiri. And Rishab, good evening, and thank you for joining me tonight once again on this Friday night. The Bears coming off a crazy win, and with the Bears finally back in Chicago, it seems like they've been gone for quite a while. It feels like, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. Our last game at home was the Saints game, right? So
Yeah,
it's
it was the Saints game. Absolutely, yes.
basically been a month at this point. So yeah, it's great to be back. We have a couple games now at Soldier Field, I think. Or no, the next one after this is against the Vikings on the road. So yeah, we're only going to be back.
Exactly, yes.
It should be it should be an interesting game against the Giants. Should be hopefully a winnable game for the Bears. And if they can win this game, we could start talking about the playoffs hopefully in Chicago.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, before we get into the meat and bones of our conversations, let's look back at our last Sunday's game between the Bears and the Bengals, and it was just a chaotic game from start to finish, and it
Yeah.
was a heart attack inducing game where the Bears had the game wrapped up. To be honest with you, it was 41-27, and that Tremaine Edmonds touch interception near the 5-yard line off Joe Flacco's pass. They ruled it. He was touched for whatever reasons, which was kind of stupid and petty. And from there, the Bears should have at least gotten a first down. I think on that third down on that interception where they were lined up at the 5-yard line, I believe it was either Monangai or Bretton Brown who had the ball, and then they should have at least gotten a first down, and he should have gotten it. But he somehow, just took a knee inbounds and then just basically gave the ball back unnecessarily. And we all remember what happened on that next two possessions, unfortunately, where the Bears had to give the ball back to the Bengals, touchdown, 2-point conversion, and then the onside kick, a touchdown, an extra point, and everything else. And I got to tell you, Rishab, it was just not for the faint of heart, for sure. What was your mindset from start to finish watching that game last Sunday, wherever you might be?
Yeah, I knew it was going to be a shootout, but I didn't know we'd have to score 47 points to win this game. And yeah, as you mentioned, when we went ahead by 14 points late in the game, we got the Tremaine Edmonds, what we thought was going to be a pick six. I thought we had basically won the game. Like, even when the pick six got called back, I was very confident we were going to win the game. But then everything just unravels from there. I mean, it was kind of a Eberflus level meltdown for the Chicago Bears. Like, to give up easy touchdown, give up the onside kick, give up another easy touchdown. We gave up the 2-point conversion too. I was just thinking, like, is this actually going to be an Eberflus level meltdown? But the difference is that Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams are changing things, right? Like, under last year's coaching staff, we would have still lost this game. But Caleb and Ben Johnson found a way to still win this game, which is a major difference this season from last season. Even when we choked a game away, we won it at the last second. So it was pretty exciting to watch the final drive of the game. I mean, to see the the touchdown to Colson Loveland. Like, it's been a while since we got like a walk-off. It wasn't a walk-off touchdown. I mean, there was
No, but
other team got a possession after that, but like, it was almost basically a walk-off touchdown, which it was like super exciting to see something like that. And just to see a shootout was so fun, because as Bears fans, we're not accustomed to us being in shootouts, let alone winning shootouts. I mean,
yeah,
we had Justin Fields. We had a couple shootout type games, like against the Steelers, against the Dolphins, but we always lost those games. The difference is that Ben Johnson finds a way to win all these games. So I thought it was a very encouraging performance from the Bears for that aspect, that even though our defense played like complete shit, to be honest, I mean, defense was horrible, the offense still found a way to win the game. And that's the biggest takeaway I have. The offense of the Bears is really good right now.
Oh yeah, for the first time, in a long time, you feel like the offense actually carried the defense for a change. And the offense, as great as they were, and they were definitely carried by two rookies, Kyle Monangai and Colston Loveland, who finally had his big breakthrough game. I was hoping that he would score a touchdown almost, much sooner. And yet somehow he never really got traction just yet because of the injuries. His use rate wasn't good enough. He got called for 2 OPIs in the Washington and the Saints game. It was unfortunate how he was used and he was being targeted, but he really had a big breakout in a major way, and I'm really, really happy about it. But as I wrote in the beargoggleson.com here, it kind of felt like the chaotic game was like a microcosm of Brian Poles' tenure, in terms of how he assembled the roster. As great as Monangai and Loveland were, Rishab, the special teams and the defense almost gave it away, and that had to feel sickening in the minds of many people, because if the Bears had they blown this game, this loss would have be equal to last year's Hail Mary loss, or even worse, and then we might have had our own version of a 10-game losing streak like we've experienced last year. Would you have agreed that this team would have been as catastrophic as last year's Hail Mary, or do you feel like at least with Ben Johnson things would have been somewhat minimalized, even if they had lost this one?
It would have been a little bit minimized as opposed to last year, but it would still have been super catastrophic. Like, I think it is possible the Bears could have gone on a big losing streak after a loss like that, because it's very hard to get the sting of a loss like that out of your heads. You just keep on thinking to yourself, like, how did we choke that game away like we did against the Commanders? I mean, that was like in the minds of all the Bears players, and nobody took accountability. Like, the coaching staff did not enforce any level of accountability. I think if the Bears lost that game, like, Ben Johnson would have really held a lot of guys accountable, like in practice. Like, he would have been doing tougher practices. Maybe Richard Hightower could have been fired by now if they lost that game. So, in ways, like, I guess it is good that we won that game, so we could have avoided all those conversations. But at the same time, we can't forget what happened. Like, we did choke a lead at the very last second. Like, it was a historic choke. We did win at the end, but against a better team, we probably would not have came back. So I'm sure Ben Johnson really emphasized that point to the Bears players that, like, look, like, you guys have to be better out there in future games, specifically for the special teams and defense. I mean, I can't believe who was the guy on special teams whose leg hit the ball?
I believe it was Daniel Hardy.
Yeah, Daniel Hardy. I mean, he kind of got pushed into it, but at the same time, I mean, you can't let something like that happen. The rates for an onside kick being converted are super low. So it was a complete disaster. And, like, we haven't even talked about Cairo Santos yet. I mean, what are your opinions about Cairo Santos? Because I'm not sure if I want him to be on the Bears anymore long term, but at the same time, it's risky if we have Jake Moody in here, because he's only had like 1 or 2 good games, right?
Well, yeah, it was against the Commanders. He kicked a game winner. He had 1 blocked, unfortunately, and then against the Saints game when Cairo Santos was not healthy at all. But we're a year ago, I believe Santos was having same issues with the kickoffs, and then the problems with the kicking. He missed one. He had 2 missed, both from the same yardage. At least one, fortunately, was negated because of the encroachment penalty by the Bengals special teamer. And then they went for it on 4th and 1 and got the first down, which they ended up leading to a touchdown, I believe, on that Olamide Zacchaeus' end around on that one, I believe. So, listen, the issue is still coming up. I know it seems like Richard Hightower was kind of very, very defiant in the conversations he had with his, special teamers about them wanting to get coached up and, and he was dead set on focusing on fixing it. And it's been a massive problems with the Bears special teams because they can't stop the returns and giving opposing teams a better field position. Versus the Bears, it seems like the Bears can barely get past the 25, 30-yard line only a handful of times, and they always have to start in a less than ideal position to start with. So, that has to be cleaned up. I know the Raiders, because of yesterday's debacle against the Denver Broncos on Thursday night, they fired their special teams coach just this afternoon, kind of like a news dump, about an hour ago when nobody was probably paying much attention to it. And again, of course, it's the Raiders. So I don't know. Maybe Richard Hightower might be the probably the only coach on this staff who happens to be a holdover from the last one with Matt Eberflus, and he might be the only one who is probably going to get fired at the end of the year if special teams doesn't pick up. And as far as your comments about the kicker, I'll say this: if Cairo Santos cannot improve his kicking, and this week obviously you live in Chicago area in the suburbs, the weather is going to be very cold and snowy on Sunday, and the weather is about to get to turn for the south this weekend. So heading south. So, if he has a hard time kicking, then that might be the time where, okay, it's time for Jake Moody. Is it a risk? Yes. But it seems as though Cairo Santos having a similar problems that, that plagued them exactly a year ago is now, propping up again for whatever reasons. Now, Santos, of course, had some injuries a couple of weeks ago that put him on, that caused him to miss a couple of games. But I don't see anything wrong with, giving Jake Moody a shot, in my opinion. So this Sunday's performance, whether it's the kickoff, can he kick the ball deep into the end zone, or can he, kick a 45, 50-yard field goal without giving Bears fans a headache? This game is going to be a huge one for, Cairo Santos, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think especially with you brought up the windy conditions and the snowy conditions, you want to kick
Right.
a big leg in those conditions. And, Cairo is proven to not have a big leg. Like, he is one of the weakest legs in the NFL. Now, he is.
It is.
He's pretty accurate with it, but like on these longer kicks, over and over and over again, like the 45+ yard kicks, they always get blocked because his trajectory is super low.
Exactly.
He doesn't have the loft on it to get it over the blocker's hands. And you could blame the Bears blockers on those plays, but if it keeps on happening every single time, it's got to be Cairo's issue to some extent. So I totally agree with you. Like, at some point, there needs to be some accountability with Cairo Santos. I am a little bit worried if we turn to Jake Moody, because the 49ers cut him for a reason. Like, he was one of the worst kickers with the 49ers. He also had a bunch of problems with 50+ yard kicks. He was very inaccurate, but sometimes kickers just need to change the scenery, and maybe Jake Moody just needed a change of scenery here in Chicago. So yeah, we'll see what happens. But
he did kick in Michigan, so he's not exactly a slouch, and it comes to cold, terrible conditions. Although kicking in Ann Arbor versus Chicago is slightly a little bit of a different story there. Right. My guest tonight is the Bears YouTuber Rishab Skiri from the YouTube channel, DaWindyCity Production. Touching back on that game a little bit on Sunday, Rishab. Caleb Williams started a little bit slow, in the first half. He was basically scrambling all over the field. Maybe unfortunate with the pressure, or maybe he just wasn't seeing the field a little bit better. In the second half, I think Ben Johnson started to give him more easier completions. And I think that was a very noticeable. They were still running the ball very effectively down the Bengals' throats, and it was a catalyst to the victory. I Do you feel like this victory over the Bengals, in which Williams calmly directed the that final touchdown to Colston Loveland on first down after he scrambled with basically no timeout left? What I believe is about a 17. Wait, I'm about maybe less than 30 seconds left. Was Bengals game? Do you feel like Williams is like a legacy game, or was the game that we look back and say, yeah, this is Caleb's come up party, or something similar?
Yeah, I mean, I think for the clutch scenario, the clutch factor, you could say it was. I mean, it wasn't only this game though. Like there was a game against the one against the Commanders, right? Like he was super clutch in that game too. He's been clutch against the Raiders too. So I feel like he's already had his coming out party to some extent in terms of being clutch at the end of the game. But I think when Caleb really is going to get respect among NFL fan bases is when he beats like a playoff team, like in a big position. Like if he beats, for example, the Lions, the Packers, the Vikings, especially on a nationally televised game. I think that would be a big factor. Like if it is nationally televised, if this game was on national television, I think everybody will be talking about how Caleb has arrived. But because this game was just a 12 p.m. game, some people maybe didn't watch the whole thing, which is unfortunate. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like Caleb just has to keep on stacking good performances on top of each other. He needs to be better in the middle of games. I think he's really good at the ending of games, 2-minute situations, clutch situations. He's really good. And I'm not gonna criticize Caleb too much when he scored 47 points, but you also want to see it against a better defense. So far this year against good defenses, he's not had maybe as good performances, but the Giants don't have a good defense either. But after that, we got the Vikings defense that's going to present another tough test. So it was an overall encouraging performance from Caleb.
Right. And we'll get to the Bears Giants preview in just a little bit later toward the end of our show. For those who are not familiar with 506 Sports, this is a site that really tells you where all the games are going to be held, both Fox and CBS, both the early kickoffs and the late afternoons. The Fox game of the week one, since it's a doubleheader, I believe this week. With the Rams and the 49ers. Fox's game of the week. The earlier slate, as you can see here, the pinkish color is the Giants and the Bears. I happen to be in the Michigan area. Thankfully, I get to watch that over other games. Thank God. Nice. The other one, of course, is the Baltimore Ravens against the Minnesota Vikings. That's in the at Minnesota. So thankfully, where I am and where you are, of course, the Bears home game is in the pinkish area. So if you happen to be outside of the Chicago area, this is where you get to watch the game. The pinkish color is the where the Giants Bears game will be on this Sunday at your local Fox affiliate. Make sure to check your time and time and channel in your area there too. So the game itself just was just a chaotic game, and Dennis Allen's defense once again gave us a real heart attack inducing one. And I do get it. Unfortunately, Dennis Allen has a lot of injuries to deal with, especially Kyler Gordon out and he's on IR. Jalen Johnson has been on IR pretty much from the very start of the season, even though he did play a couple of games, but he hasn't been fully recovered from the groin injury, I believe. And then now Bears signed CJ Gardner-Johnson, who had actually had a very good game, coming off a sack game off the edge, and having played for Dennis Allen when they were together, in New Orleans, certainly helped with the adjustment period and all of this. So 9 games in, Rishab, I just kind of feel like right now, as I wrote here, because of the roster construction, at this point, Dennis Allen has to kind of like scheme his way out of trouble the rest of the way. And unfortunately, we're going to see a lot of these types of games, win or lose, against an opponent that Bears should beat by 3 touchdowns, maybe like the Giants this weekend, or at least somebody like the Eagles, in the couple of weeks on Black Friday, we might end up losing by 2 or 3 touchdowns on the opposing end. But there's going to be some real ups and downs that we're going to have to get used to. If you thought that the Bengals game was terrible, there might be even more worse games down the stretch, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. Like, especially against the playoff teams, like, we saw what happened against the Lions. Like, we allow, what was it,
52 points. Yeah, we lost 52-21 on that one. Yes.
Yeah, and against the Packers, against the Eagles, I'm not gonna lie, like, I'm very concerned about the second half of the Bears season just because it is gonna be against some really tough playoff teams. But
yeah,
you can only hope that the Bears offense can keep up now. Like, our offense is a lot better now than it was earlier in the season. So, maybe we could still win some of these shootout type games. And I think one big factor is the Bears can actually run the football now, right? So we take away time of possession from the opposing offense, keep our defense off the field, give our defense a chance to rest, which is going to help out. Usually it's going to help out. Last game, it didn't help out still. Like, even though we ran the football really well, we still allowed 45 points or 42 points. So, sometimes it's going to help, sometimes it won't. But yeah, I mean, until the Bears pass rush can start getting home more often, until the Bears secondary gets healthy, it's going to be pretty difficult. But the hope is that Kyler Gordon comes back for the last quarter of the season. If Jalen Johnson comes back for the last quarter of the season, the last quarter we got games against the Packers, the Lions, the 49ers, whoever else. Like, those games are going to be really important for us to win and hopefully make the playoffs. But it is going to be difficult. Like, we are going to allow 30, 40 plus against a lot of these teams because we just don't have defensive talent to stop them. And like you mentioned, the Giants game, this should be an easy game, but Giants offense has actually been doing really well. Like, even without Malik Neighbors and Cam Scatteraboo, like, Jackson Dart has been playing pretty good. So it sounds like a shoe-in win for the Bears this weekend, even though it should be, because their defense is just simply not good enough.
Mm-hmm. Let's transition into the NFL trade deadline. It was this past Tuesday, 4 p.m., 3 p.m. Central. I don't know how much you were paying attention to the X, when the trade deadline was approaching that day. And listen, the Bears basically added only one player. They only added edge rusher Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, I believe, formerly a first-round pick of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in 2021, played 4 years there, was a free agent, signed a one-year deal with the Cleveland Browns this year, basically was stuck behind Myles Garrett for the pretty much whole season. So they got him for a 6th round pick, and then they got him and the 7th round pick in return from the Cleveland Browns. So Rishab, what were your overall feelings leading into this trade deadline? Were you just basically like content with the Bears not doing enough, because not doing pretty much any big deal at all because you didn't want to give up trade capital? Or do you feel like Bears may have missed out on something, doing a little more than what they got in the trade deadline?
Yeah, I actually made a tweet about this prior to the deadline, but I was really, not wanting the Bears to overpay for anybody. If the right opportunity came up for the right price, I was like, we can go for it. But I don't think there was anything really out there right now. Like, Jermaine Johnson was an option out there for the Bears pass rush, but the Jets were asking for a 2nd round pick, and that's insane. I mean, if the Bears traded a 2nd round pick for Jermaine Johnson, that would have been equivalent to the Chase Claypool trade in some ways. I mean, Johnson's a better player for sure, but he's not been very productive this year. For a 2nd round pick, that'd be way too much. So I'd almost rather have Ryan Poles do nothing than overpay again, because this Bears team, let's face it, it's not going to win the Super Bowl. We're not going to go deep in the playoffs this year, most likely, because we just don't have the defensive personnel. If you look at our pass rushers, we don't compare to the other top teams in the NFC. Now we could still make a decent run and, hopefully make the playoffs, but I never thought this Bears team was one player away from being an elite top defense. So for that reason, I'm not too mad at Ryan Poles for not making a big move. I think the Tryon-Shoyinka move is like okay. I mean, it doesn't really do anything for me. Like, he's not going to improve the Bears pass rush by that much, but
No.
it's worth a shot, right? Because Dennis Allen got production out of Dominique Robinson this year. So if he got production out of Dominic Robinson, maybe he could get something out of Tryon-Shoyinka, who was a former first-round pick, right?
Right.
So I don't know. I wasn't too mad at it. I know some Bears fans were expecting more, but you didn't see too many trades out there happen that the Bears could have gone after. There was a couple maybe on the D-line, but the Sauce Gardner got traded. We don't have a cornerback. Well, we do have a cornerback need, but like we couldn't trade 2 first-round picks for a cornerback right now. So I wasn't too mad at the trade deadline. But how about yourself?
No, I wasn't angry. I don't think the Bears should have given up, King's ransom for, Trey Hendrickson or Jermaine Johnson or Max Crosby and all that stuff. Those were just basically a pipe dream. And, as I wrote here in my article, basically, with the, quiet trade deadline, as I was saying earlier, now the pressure is on Dennis Allen to scheme his way out of trouble this year, the rest of the way. What he has certainly, unfortunately, is not enough. And I do find it a little bit sympathetic because of all the injuries towards Dennis Allen's, defense. Because if he had healthy bodies, I certainly think that he could be a lot more creative. If he had at least Kyler Gordon, he could at least use him off the edge and, blitz off the edge and then just, sack a quarterback like we saw that he already did that in his return against the Saints game, I believe. And now you have to use C.J. Gardner-Johnson, who is a very talented player, but volatile and wear out his welcome everywhere he's been to so far this year. I did tweet that either he's going to be great or he's going to be gone in 2 weeks because he finds trouble with the coaches and teammates. But so far, if he is on his best behavior, I think that Dennis Allen being somebody who played for him under his system and guidance, hopefully C.J. Gardner-Johnson will be I'm not saying choir boy, but at least somebody who can at least be a much more productive player than he has been elsewhere, to be honest with you. So that's, I think, one thing you have to keep an eye out for it. And of course, the Austin Booker's return was also huge against the Bengals. He had a strip sack that caused a fumble there, which led to the 41st point. I think when that strip sack happened, it was 34-27, and they recovered the ball, and then they ended up scoring touchdown. So the return of Austin Booker was huge. And then you have Tryon-Shoyinka, who is a little more of a, somebody who fits the profile that defensive end that Dennis Allen really, really likes in terms of somebody who's got length and everything. I think, I'll just say JTS just to make it short. He's got a 34-inch arm. Okay, so that's the kind of guy that the Dennis Allen prefers. Big defensive ends. And the worst thing that Dennis Allen can do is, you ended up playing a new guy because they got the new guy, and then you have Austin Booker, who at least flashed something in his return, and that was very, very encouraging. You don't want to force, to play a guy that was just acquired because he fits the description of the defensive end you like or you want to play, over somebody who had a sack and looks to be, a more, I would say maybe more versed and more experienced in that system and could be more productive. So it's a juggling act that Dennis Allen has to, kind of balance things out and make sure that, Austin Booker is given, playing time, and hopefully Booker gets, develop properly and become more productive moving forward, because that's what you want. You need somebody who can actually rush the quarterback, create pressure, Montez Sweat has had a sack in the last 3 games, which is very, very encouraging. Still, I know a lot of people like, well, he still doesn't. His production doesn't match what he's making, and I get it, But I truly believe that Montez Sweat is starting to, get back into that 2023 form when he was, basically creating havoc shortly after he was traded from Washington to the Bears. And I feel like as long as Montez Sweat can continue to create pressure and and cause havoc, Bears defense will be very, very fine. And the secondary will have their moments. Unfortunately, the not getting some corner in the trade, I was a little bit disappointed. I'm not going to lie to you. There were some available, but maybe the teams like the Saints, who had Alontae Taylor rumored to be available, the Dolphins with Rasul Douglas, the Bengals with Cam Britt-Taylor. None of the teams ended up trading them. Maybe the asking price was too much. That's what I'm going to judge. So I'm very glad that at least the Bears had restrained themselves. Mostly probably, Ryan Poles talked to his coaches, primarily Ben Johnson, and said, you know what, we don't need to give up, draft capital at this point. I think with what they have, hopefully Ben and his staff can, elevate the players that they already have. The holdovers from last year that stunk up under Matt Eberflus and his staff. I've already seen, Tremaine Edmonds play at a higher level this year so far in a new system, flourishing. And that's a good thing. Like I said, Montez Sweat has had a sack in the last 3 games, and hopefully he should be able to get more moving forward, because you need those productions with what you have. And, this is going to be a big test for, Dennis Allen. Can he do with what we already have with all the injuries? And then how much of an offense can, the Bears, improve moving forward? Because I think this offense, even with the explosion, there are some still issues, with drops, bad routes, Caleb holding on to the football. And if you still, if you can clean those things out, I truly believe that the Bears can score against anybody. And probably, maybe the offense has to do their heavy pulling, in my opinion, Rishab.
I totally agree with all of that. I think the offense, you brought up a good point. Even though we're scoring a lot of points, there's still a lot of ways to grow. I mean, Caleb, he's doing a lot better now, but he's still pretty inconsistent on some of these short passes, especially his screen passes, the medium passes. He's a little bit off sometimes with his accuracy. I forgot which analyst on Twitter, but like somebody compared him a little bit to Josh Allen, where Josh Allen was also super inaccurate his first couple of years, but he was he was still scoring points the second year because he was super talented. He was making big time play after big time play. And right now the Bears offense actually ranks #1 in explosive plays throughout the entire NFL. So that should be something that we should celebrate, but we also have to be more consistent in the base offense, the basic plays, which, are just going for maybe 5-6 yards. We got to start converting on those too, because once it becomes cold outside, once we're facing against better defenses, you won't be able to just get yardage via explosive plays, which is kind of what we're doing right now. It's not sustainable to only get yardage via, 10, 15 yard runs or like huge bombs down the field. So I'm very hopeful that Caleb is going to continue to grow, continue to get better. He has shown me no reason to not be optimistic about him. And, we haven't even gotten all the receivers involved yet. Like Luther Burden has really not played a big role yet on the Chicago Bears. I'm really curious to see if Luther Burden gets a bigger role going forward. We saw Colson Loveland get a big role in the last game. So maybe Burden gets somewhat of a role, but we'll see what happens. Yeah. And regarding the run game, I am really impressed that the Bears are able to run the football right now, that we do have an elite ground game. And I wonder how DeAndre Swift's return is going to factor in. Do you think that DeAndre Swift will return to getting RB1 carries, or do you think it's going to be a little bit more 50-50 now? Because Monangai had a hell of a game last game.
Well, DeAndre Swift apparently popped up in the what do you call it, the injury wrist. Apparently, he did not practice due to personal reason. I don't know what that personal reason is. It is a little bit scary. I know some people were joking that he took the he did not like the Monangai taking away carries or something, so his feelings were hurt and all that kind of stuff. But I'm not going to make any wild accusations or presumptions. But without even without DeAndre Swift, the Bears ran the ball effectively against the Bengals, and then Britton Brown, a cool story, a guy who was out of football, went back to school and got his first touchdown, I believe, as a professional last week against the Bengals. So I think at least with one more week, even if DeAndre Swift is dealing with the hamstring or even the personal problems, the Bears should be able to run the ball with both Monangai and Britton Brown. I do believe that. And if DeAndre Swift is available on Sunday, I think it would be even more dangerous because, Monangai, I think, is a hot hand. And I think Johnson did say in the press conference today that he wants to give the guy with the hot hand a more, opportunities. And I think that's what Ben's thinking is when it comes to with the receivers, when Rome Odunze is always, getting all the catches and people complain that there's not enough balls being passed around to the receivers outside of Odunze. Mm-hmm. And I think there's a similarity to that because you give the guy who is hot an opportunity to keep on, getting the rocks because he's been effective. And of course, I don't know if he can carry the ball 26, 27 times like he did. He did take a little bit of a breather, of course, late in the game, Monangai, that is. So I think if both Swift and Monangai plays, Monangai will be the first guy to get the ball, I think, moving forward. And Swift will have his moments, because he's a very, Swifty, quick guy, mostly better running the outside rather than the inside. And of course, he's a menace in the passing game too, on the screen passes and everything. So I think that's how he's going to be used moving forward a little more. Would that be happy for Andre Swift? I don't know. I think deep inside he might be a little bit hurt, but as long as you're winning, I don't think it really doesn't mean much. And I don't think Ben will, cater to, the guy who happens to be making more money than the rookie, or at least being outplayed by the rookie, or care much about how he's feeling, being outplayed by the rookie who is making a fraction of what he's making salary-wise, in my opinion. So, we're talking about the Giants, and, Giants are 2-7. And it's their team has kind of been shambles ever since that the Broncos game debacle a couple of weeks ago, where they led 19-0 and ended up losing 33-32. And people were already making wild speculations about the Giants, head coaching job, Brian Daboll. This is what he had to say, of course, about the when he was asked about it.
There was a report yesterday from WFAN, the Giants radio station, that your job was in jeopardy after the Broncos game, getting off the plane. Is that something that you were even aware of? And what do you know about that?
I know about it talking to Pat on the way down. So,
no, I mean,
other than that, no. But again, not winning enough games. There's a lot of reports out there. So you don't think you focus on those. You focus on the things you can control.
So there is a legit concern that depending on how the Sunday's game turns out, there are legit people believe that legitimately that Brian Daboll could get fired, which is interesting because it's usually the Bears, coaches who ended up getting fired, as we witnessed last year, with Matt Eberflus, because you lose a game in such an inexplicable way. So preview-wise, it's the Bears defense, the Bears offensive line, I think, will face a major challenge. Ben Johnson did say that the Giants defensive line is probably the most talented and the best that he's going to be facing all season long, in my opinion. But outside of Brian Burns, who's got 11 sacks, everybody else, Dexter Lawrence, Kayvon Thibodeau, who was a subject of a trade rumor, and then the rookie Abdul Carter, the third overall pick in this year's draft. They haven't done jack squat, and I have a feeling, Rishab, that again this line of scrimmage between the Bears offensive line and the Giants defensive line could be a massive have a ramification on this game on Sunday.
100%. I think Theo Benedict at left tackle worries me a little bit entering this matchup because going up against Brian Burns, who has 11 sacks, that's going to be a very difficult matchup. And we have seen Theo kind of struggle in pass protection so far this year. So I'm definitely concerned about the left side of the line, for that reason. But at the same time, the Giants defense has severely underperformed. They're the worst defense, second to worst defense against the run. They're really bad against the pass as well. So, even though they have these pass rushers that should be doing really good, they're just not a good defense right now. So I really hope the Bears offense does not let the Giants defense get back on track, because they do have the talent to turn it around eventually if they want to. But at this point, like Shane Bowen, the Giants defensive coordinator, he's on the hot seat for sure. I mean, Giants fans want to fire him immediately. So, we'll see what happens with that. But, really where the Bears should focus on in this game is running the football, because the Giants, as I mentioned, have the second to worst run defense in the NFL. And if you can run the football well, that's going to open up opportunities for Caleb in the passing attack. And he won't have to just sit back and, throw the ball 30, 40 times in this game. If that's what happens, if Caleb has to throw the ball a lot, then it could be a tough day for the Bears offense because of, as I mentioned, Theo Benedict not being an elite pass protector. But if you can run the ball, I think we should have a pretty good chance.
I agree. You shouldn't deviate away from what has been successful for you. And that's a problem with most coaches, because they get cocky and they sometimes think that they're the smartest thing, or their scheme is foolproof. We went through that with Matt Nagy. Unfortunately, Ben Johnson is a smart man, and although I do have a problem sometimes, I think we saw with the Bengals game where near the goal line, when that guy was successful, they went away from him on third down and one of the, plays near the end zone on 3rd and goal. And they just, I think this was before halftime. I think, they did not run, and then just, Caleb was just being chased around. They had to throw the ball away before Santos, I forgot if he made the kick or if he missed that kick or not, but I think it was probably the one that was where at least he made the kick that day. So as long as Johnson sticks to the script, I think the Bears will definitely win. Again, the linebackers and the corners are not exactly the Giants' strength. Like you said, the run defense is terrible. The 32nd worst run defense was last week against the Bengals. This week, again, they faced the second worst one in the Giants. So you got to run the ball, especially in this weather. We're expecting in the 36 or 37 and in the snow and the rain or whatnot. You got to run the ball. The Giants, of course, is a team that's, of course, used to playing outdoors, and this probably weather wouldn't be much of an advantage. But at least at home, the Bears cannot lose to the Giants team that is in massive turmoil. As you heard, Brian Daboll is legitimately on hot seat. He could be fired as soon as Monday. The general manager Jones Shane and the relationship between the two have strained because Joe Shane can't develop draft and develop talent. The talent is a little bit bare, and Brian Daboll's system right now is basically Jackson Dart, and that's it. Run, pass, everything has to go through him. They do have some talent. Wan'Dale Robinson, Darius Slayton, those two are the primary receivers. Theo Johnson is a rising tight end who is more of a blocker, but he can also catch the pass now. So, the Bears will have their challenge, but I'm going to guess. I did write on Bear Goggles on 31-17 Bears. What's your final score prediction?
So in my video, I predicted Bears win 31-24. I do think it's going to be, maybe it's not going to be as close, but in the last, minute or so, maybe the Giants score another touchdown. But I do expect the Bears to score 30+ in this game. I mean, with how bad the Giants defense has been, with how bad the run defense has been, this
Right.
should be a game that Monangai again gets 100+ yards. We should be able to score 31 plus. So if they can, take care of business, we should win this game.
Absolutely. This is a huge test for Dennis Allen and their defense too. Jackson Dart, young quarterback, basically he's the guy who does everything for them right now. You got to be able to stop him on the run. I've seen him, break a few tackles, against the Chargers and the Eagles in both wins. He was very effective. He takes a lot of shots now because Neighbors and Scatterboo are out, and he has to do all by himself. So, as long as the Bears don't commit any silly penalties, tackling or sacking, Jackson Dart, I think the Bears should have, relatively easy time against the New York Giants, in my opinion. Well, listen, Rishab, thanks for your time. It's been a while since we got together and did this, so it's really, really nice to catch up with you. Tell me, I do believe that you're going to be attending a tailgate this Sunday, correct?
Yeah, correct. So Bears Mysterio, who's in this chat earlier today, but yeah, he's hosting a tailgate outside. I don't have the information in front of me, but if you follow his page, you can see where it is, and we're just gonna be tailgating before the game. I won't be attending the game, but I'll probably just be watching at a local bar or whatever, and it's gonna be a fun time. It's always fun going to the tailgates, seeing the Bears crowd, seeing the Bears energy, especially when we're winning a lot of games. The energy is a lot different in Chicago. So you got to come out to one if you, Steven, if you're ever in the city again in the next couple months. Definitely feel free to come out.
Absolutely. If he does this every home, does he does this every home game?
I believe so. I'm pretty sure it's every home game. Yeah. So
I know he did a big one in Vegas when the Bears visited the Las Vegas to play the Raiders there too. I saw a little bit of that, and I do follow him on X there too. So absolutely, awesome. I'd love to come down to Chicago again.
Yeah.
The Bears are playing better. The city is is pretty. I think the morale is pretty high. The Bulls are 6-1. Now the Blackhawks are off to a pretty decent start right now. I know they have had a little bit of struggle on the West Coast trip right now, but now that the baseball season is over, Bears, Bulls, Blackhawks, they're going to have to carry the city for the duration of the cold winter time. And when the Bears are doing well, the NFL is going to be doing very, very well, as the late John Madden used to say. Rishab, thanks for your time. Have a great weekend, and I'll catch up with you again. Hopefully, we'll do a live stream one of these days, during the whenever you're available.
Sounds good. Thank you.
All right, everybody. Thank you very much. Don't forget, this Sunday, I'll be doing a live stream with my regular co-host, Ken Fang from Awful Announcing. And then I'm also working on a special appearance. This will be most likely during the weekdays afternoon with Jake Assman, who is the afternoon host from ESPN 880 in New York, who is the big Jets YouTuber and also works for the ESPN New York station there. Please follow me on X for the upcoming details on that appearance. Enjoy your football weekend Sunday, and then we'll catch up again this next time. Have a great night, everybody.